So Philadelphia made a move at 2 in the morning, getting themselves what you could call a big four, as Tobias Harris is now going to be there, and they do hope to sign him and everybody on this team long term, and we'll talk about that. This is quite a starting five. You got Jimmy Butler, who still slots in as probably a top 20 player, Ben Simmons, who's still getting better even without the jump shot, Joel Embiid, who has entered the top 10 this year, I would say, and he has not hit his ceiling yet. And then there is Tobias, who gets better every season, is 26 years old, and could have made the All-Star team in the Western Conference. And I do want to spend about 30 seconds here talking about Tobias a little more. He is one of the most versatile and efficient scorers in the league. His true shooting percentage is a beautiful 61%. He doesn't take bad shots that often. He keeps the ball moving. He doesn't kill your offense. When he decides to ISO, he's very quick with it. And he's a very positive offensive piece for you. And now you combine him with Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons, and suddenly this team has 3 guys who you can give the ball to, and they can make something happen. I mean, we've heard this season that Jimmy Butler's had some problems here and there about not getting the ball in simple sets enough. He has a good reason for that, because he's good at it. Ben Simmons, while the jumper is what it is, if he gets ahead of steam going towards the basket, there are few players in the NBA who can actually stop him from finishing that play, and I can say a lot of those things about Tobias Harris as well. Of course, there is another guy, I just mentioned him, Embiid. He's probably still going to get the most shots on this team, as he should. He, of course, is a little different than those guys because a lot of his work is going to be in the low post, and I think Philly's offense, while it is going to be awkward at times because nowadays teams and throwing the ball down to the big man for post-up opportunities, it's just kind of weird. You still have to do it because you have to give the ball to your best player, of course. The question is, do you just have enough shooting around Embiid to make it work? Well, Jimmy, sure, he's not a natural three-point dude. I don't think he's bad. JJ Redick is, of course, awesome, and his value for this team is still going to be through the roof. I mean, those curl handoff plays they run are a big part of their offense. And Tobias Harris is an awesome three-point shooter. I would picture him taking probably 4 to 6 threes a game for Philly, and there's a chance that he will get open looks for this team that he wasn't getting with the Clippers, and even then, he was getting some pretty decent looks for LA, but the talent on this Philly team is certainly better, so there could be times when he's just wide open. Plays like this one, which happened sporadically with the Clippers, could be a bit of a regular thing with the Sixers. So there's a chance his three-point percentage, which is already excellent, could be even better. Also, for what it's worth, Mike Scott can make some threes as well. Also, Michael Scott is now playing in Pennsylvania. Why is this not the headline of this entire trade? I don't know. Now we got to talk about Ben Simmons' jumper. The black hole that he creates, it's a problem. I don't think it's going to kill everything else they have in terms of spacing. And then, of course, Ben Simmons is going to have the ball in his hands all the time. And this is something that I'm really intrigued about because going from Wilson Chandler to Tobias Harris is a big upgrade. And now we have 4 shot makers around Ben Simmons. And assuming that Simmons has the ball almost as much as possible, transition, the creative pick and rolls they'll run within the three-point line and all that, the other weird sets that the Sixers run to get their guys open shots, I think Ben Simmons could rack up assists. I mean, he's already been doing that, and he could be doing it even more. Now let's talk about some off-the-floor stuff. These 4 are going to be very expensive. Between max contracts and all that, and Tobias maybe getting a max contract, these 4 could end up costing the Sixers somewhere between $115 and $125 million, potentially even a little bit more than that. It does not give them a lot of leeway to make other moves. The one real asset they still have is Markelle Fultz. I think at this point, it's fair to look for trades for the guy. I mean, catering to him and taking the ball out of Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, and Tobias' hands, and Embiid as well, he just can't do it at this point. We should also talk about that Heat pick. That's interesting because that pick is going to be in the draft after Miami actually has cap space for the first time in a long time. So I picture them getting some free agents, and they're always going to try to win anyway. So that pick might not really be a huge loss for Philly. I want to talk about defense a little bit. You could argue the Sixers defense has been a bit disappointing this season. They're like 15th in defensive rating over the past like 15 or 20 games or so. But they have the personnel to be one of the best in the league. I mean, they were one of the best defensive teams just a season ago, and they've always been elite when Embiid's in the game. And I know they lost Covington, but I'd still like to think that will eventually figure itself out between Ben Simmons, Embiid, Jimmy Butler. Maybe Brett Brown can help with all this. The jury's still out on how good he really is. Tobias, I would not consider him to be an elite or even a very good defender, but he's a big dude, he plays hard enough, and I would say he's fundamentally sound to where he can still be at least a neutral to positive piece for you on defense. And being able to defend is going to matter, because the Eastern Conference is still pretty talented up top, but all the teams here, the Celtics, who have had some problems this year, the Bucks, who, for as great as they are basically one amazing player and then a bunch of decent to occasionally very good dudes. And then the Raptors, where I could kind of argue the same thing just because Kawhi's putting up points, but Lowry's scoring has been a bit sporadic this season and all that. These teams need to take notice of this move, because depending on Tobias Harris's fit with Philadelphia, could they end up being the best team in the Eastern Conference off of this move? I don't know. I mean, we're really going to see the effects of this in the postseason, and those teams are still very good, so I'm not penciling in Philadelphia for a finals trip, but they got themselves a hell of a player here.